With the launch of PlayStation VR just around the corner, Johnny, Aoife, Chris and I have been daydreaming about what video games we'd love to see receiving the VR treatment. As usual, we've all got different ideas as to what would work best, so let's kick off this wishlist feature with a little bit of Chiodini and a whole load of balls.
Rocket League is a fantastic video game. It reignited my love affair with online multiplayer, for one thing. It convinced me I could actually be good at football games, and it also made me talk about the finer details of video game camera control more than I think I have in the last 10 years. See, in Rocket League you can control the camera freely as you drive your car about the stadium, checking to see where the ball or the other players are, as you please. You can also toggle a mode whereby the camera follows the ball wherever it goes, and those two modes have given rise to a surprising number of trains of thought. Is it better to doggedly follow the ball? Will you get better results if you train yourself to control the camera at all times, or is it better to switch between the two as the situation calls for it? Now, imagine you could follow the action simply by moving your head about. It'd take some getting used to, yes, but come on. Imagine being in that stadium and seeing it full scale for yourself. I know Rocket League is played in third person, but honestly in VR, that wouldn't be that weird. I played a game called Into the Dark at this year's EGX, and it convinced me third person VR is not only possible, but worthwhile. Of course, to make life easier, or to reduce nausea maybe, they could always add in a first-person view to Rocket League for those who want to follow the action from inside the car, although presumably that would mean finally providing an answer to the question of whether the cars in Rocket League have drivers, or whether the cars themselves are actually alive. Oddly, developer Psyonix has refused to answer that question, playing the lore of the game close to their chest. Weird.
War has never been so much fun, sang the opening titles of Cannon Fodder, and to be fair, they weren't half wrong. Cannon Fodder is one of my all-time favourite games, but I reckon it could be even more enjoyable with the addition of virtual reality, specifically in this case, the HTC Vive. Imagine, if you will, that each level takes place on a virtual tabletop. Using the Vive, you'd be able to walk around each level, viewing it from above. You could lean in and survey the action close up, or stand back and plan your route of attack from afar. Cannon Fodder's point-and-click controls would work perfectly with the Vive controllers as well, and with this new tech you could easily split your soldiers into two teams and control them simultaneously. That was something you couldn't do in the original with the Amiga mouse, in that you had to move your teams one at a time, but with two Vive controllers in your sweaty mitts you'd be able to pull off some excellent flanking and pincer manoeuvres whenever you wanted. And then finally, how about a virtual walk around that famous Tombstone Hill from Cannon Fodder's pre-mission screen? This iconic screen already does an amazing job of highlighting the true scale of friendly fatalities throughout the game, but how about if you could actually walk up to the graves and read the names written on them? If you weren't feeling bad about letting Jules take a bullet before, you sure would in VR.
Ever since that bit in Valve's Portal demo for the HTC Vive where you open up a drawer and find there's an office full of tiny little people running around all over the place, I've known what I wanted to play in virtual reality, and that is a Total War game, because, right, Total War is already a game that blows you away with its sense of scale. That is what it's all about, and standing there in that Portal demo, being able to peer down as an individual person or pull back and assess the whole scene, you can just imagine how well that would translate to a strategy game with thousands of troops lighting on a huge battlefield. You standing above it all, pointing at units and ordering them about the place in real time like some kind of massive, invisible Julius Caesar. That would work for me. I mean, yes, Total War games are already pretty intensive to run in the first place, and this ain't gonna help very much, but you asked me what I'd like to play in VR. Someone else can figure out the tech. Cheers!
One thing that I've been consistently wowed by in VR is the sense of scale that it can bring to the table. Whether you're gazing out at the vastness of space from the safety of a cockpit, or marveling at a life-sized GLaDOS towering over you in the ruins of the Aperture Labs, VR has a knack for making you feel tiny and insignificant that a traditional TV just can't replicate. So, can you imagine playing a game like Shadow of the Colossus, riding a horse across a desolate landscape, walking quietly through a huge abandoned temple, and going up against opponents that literally block out the sun? The actual mechanics might be tricky to implement, but I think the best VR games will make the most of that ability to make players feel both vulnerable and awed. Climbing any of those old colossi would be an unforgettable experience, so long as you aren't too afraid of heights. I have a feeling we'd be better off asking for a homage rather than an actual remake or remaster though. From all accounts, Fumito Ueda is still a little bit busy with The Last Guardian, and I'd like to play a VR Shadow of the Colossus sometime this century, please.
Point-and-click games like The Testament of Sherlock Holmes or Grim Fandango are great fun, mostly because they're such tactile experiences. Manipulating the environment and the objects within the environment is so satisfying because it adds a physical dimension to go with the things you're working out with your fleshy human brain. That's why Escape the Room games are so popular worldwide at the minute, and it's also why point-and-click games are perfect for VR. Just imagine using controllers like the Vive ones, or the PlayStation Move or Oculus Touch to physically manipulate bits of the environment as you solve a mystery and advance the story. It'd be brilliant fun, and genuinely, believe me on this because I've worked on a couple of them in the past, a lot cheaper than converting your living room into an actual Escape the Room game. So yeah, tactile puzzles for me please. Thank you.
I really wanted to include a Spectrum game in this list because, well, I'm old and stuff, and my first thought was of course a first-person VR version of Fantasy World Dizzy. Then I remembered how Dizzy tumbles through the air as he jumps, and, well, I really don't want a PSVR covered in vomit, so I went for the next best thing, and that's Head Over Heels. I reckon this classic puzzle platformer would work brilliantly in VR. For example, imagine being able to adjust that famous fixed isometric viewpoint by simply moving your head. You'd be able to look above and around obstacles, and at the very least, it would be a massive help when it came to nailing those tricky isometric jumps. The fact that there's no graphical scrolling would be a massive plus as well. Flicking between each room as you exit and enter them would cancel out any potential motion sickness, leaving you free to collect donuts and explore Castle Blacktooth at your own leisure.
You know, before when we were talking about how VR can be brilliant for providing a sense of scale and why that might work with certain strategy games, well, I'd also like to see something similar from the simulation genre, I think. Specifically, it would be really cool to see one of the theme park games give this a shot. Planet Coaster, which is out next month and is already looking pretty good from its running early access, could be a decent contender for this. There are two things to think about, right? First of all, you'd be able to look down at your park from a height, taking in all details before leaning down to watch an individual coaster doing a loop-loop or what have you, and that would be fantastic in itself. But number two, and this one is the real bonus, VR has already dabbled with the idea of letting you virtually experience roller coaster rides. Off topic, has everyone seen that video of the guy trying out a VR headset in his shopping centre? He thinks he's on a roller coaster, he gets pushed in the back. God, I hope that's legit. Anyway, the point of this is being able to experience the rides that you've created for yourself in your theme park, both in first person and in virtual reality, would be absolutely brilliant. This is probably one of the best examples I have of a game and a genre that already exists that you could kind of staple VR onto rather than reworking the whole idea to fit this new platform. Yes, theme parks, roller coasters. Good.
So those were our picks of games we'd love to see given the VR treatment, but what about you lot? Let us know your VR dreams in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more from Eurogamer. Okay, done that? Excellent work. Now, maybe you'd like to check out one of these fine VR-themed videos. Or if you fancy some binge watching, that playlist in the top right there will take you to all our lovely list videos. Enjoy!